I have never spoken live in front of such a big audience, like where everybody is literally staring at me and I'm just looking out at you and I'm like, yes, you're all there. Hello. Every good speaker has a format. It follows STT, Story Teach Tool. 1% podcast, just strive to become 1% better. You don't have to go learn from Nick Santanastasso or from Les Brown or from me or from these other organizations. Go get books. Go practice. Go sit in the mirror. I used to do challenges where I would tell entire speeches in 1 to 3 minutes. All right, and welcome back again to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Finn, and...
So formal this time. And I am Shane.
Boom! Yes! Experience. So today, speaking of experience, we are going to talk about the speaking experience. How do you speak? How do you use your voice to get paid massive bucks? And how do you utilize it to not only communicate, but connect and network? Now, we've talked about networking before, but my good friend Shane here has been networking a lot more. So he has some addendums and some things to add, some massive value props. So you can go listen to our last episode on aspects of networking, then come back here and see if we actually did answer anything new. Because I got to be honest, I forgot what we've talked about since then. So this might even be a little bit of a repeat, but let's just run with it, shall we? Shane?
So networking is so crucial. I started out networking with BNI and Chamber of Commerce, and it was fine for the time being. I mean, it's just local, you know, but you have to understand that when it's local, all they care about is your fresh meat. I'm fresh meat, or they're fresh meat to me. You know, what can we do for each other? Yeah. So, which is the same mindset in networking. When you're going to these high dinners with coaches and things like that, but on a much grander scale, right? These are people who are doing exactly what you're doing, if not 10 to 100x more. So I encourage getting out of your comfort zone and going to these networking events, whether it's a dinner or coffee or whatever it may be, and talking to these people. The people you meet on top of the ones that I'm meeting, celebrities, actors, famous comedians, and obviously the mega millionaires, which is exactly where you want to be at. The just signing on 1 or 2 of these big hitter clients, not only are they going to refer me business, they're going to give you the testimonials you need, they're going to give you the clout that you need, and guess what's going to happen the next time you go to a dinner? This person is going to pick you out of the crowd and say to 5, 10 other people, this is the guy you need to talk to. And that's exactly what happened. I had a very happy client, and that happy client spoke out loud and called me out and said, you need to talk to Shane. If you're looking to offset some of your work to virtual assistants, Shane's the guy you need to talk to. And after that, I had 4 or 5 people walk up after me and said, all right, what do you got? So that's one of the most successful things that I've personally done or had happen to me at networking. Usually it's all about, you know, grinding and prospecting and marketing and trying to get this. But when it comes to networking, if you do a good job and you know you do a good job, the rest comes to fruition. So powers of networking, I can't speak enough good things about it.
Shane forgets to mention that we met at one of those dinners.
I mentioned that a long time ago. I like one of our first or second ones.
I get it, but now the whole focus is on these dinners. You have to remind. And what if people are just jumping in right now and they didn't go back because they were lazy and didn't want to listen to the other episodes?
I met Vin at a dinner almost a year ago, and we formed this, you know, relationship. But now it's, you know, comparing packages and everything else that has turned into. But yes, another bonus of these dinners is you meet amazing people. I feel like that's pretty much almost as good as the business is the relationships that you form. Because now you're meeting, it's not just friends, it's people who are like-minded individuals that not only, you know, you want them to succeed, like you'll do anything to help them get to where they need to be, and vice versa. Like it's crazy to meet those kind of people.
It's so interesting because there's a few different ways to network. One is to go out and try to talk to as many people as you can, get as many contacts as you can, and then follow up with everybody and try to have meaningful conversations. That's how one of my friends does it, where he will go to a party that he knows nobody and he will leave with 40 contacts.
Shotgun approach.
Just the shotgun approach. But I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I like to really spend time sitting there and having conversation, and I could get caught up. I mean, there'll be times, and people tell me I do it wrong, but there'll be times I'll go out to an event. Maybe I'll just talk to one or two people for the entirety of the event. And, maybe it depends on what stage you are in life or business, et cetera, et cetera. But I found that it's a lot more meaningful to do that. I found that a lot more comes out of that because here's the kicker. Even though my friend leaves with 40 to 50 contacts, I know for a fact not all of them answer him. I know for a fact that if you leave with the more numbers that you leave with, the more likely, yes, you will get a response or a few, but also the less likely you're going to get a lot of responses. If I talk to 2 to 3 people and really spend time getting to know them, I would say like 9 out of 10 times they will all respond to me. Whereas if I go out and I meet 30 people, maybe 2 to 3 people respond to me. And even then, we don't really know each other that well. So now it's like, oh, now we're going to also do a follow-up call. Now I'm going to spend an extra 3 or so hours just getting to know each of these people. It actually becomes a longer process if you think about it. So whatever approach really works for you, I think is important, to actually note and say, like, how do I want to show up at these dinners? Or maybe they're not dinners. I don't know, any other event, right? Shane's got me saying dinners. I'm also kind of hungry. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, it was 3:00. I had a sushi burrito for lunch, but I could probably eat more.
Sounds good.
Oh man, it was so good. Can I tell you real quick? Hold on, pause. Everybody, this is actually very important. I've been craving a sushi burrito for like almost a month. But the kicker is I only want it on Mondays, usually, which is when I'm dropping my daughter off at my mom's house, but they're closed on Mondays. But today I went to get a haircut. See, the haircut is next to my mom's house. My mom's house next to the sushi burrito place. So your man stopped and got a sushi burrito today, filled it with spicy salmon, eel, and snow crab salad. In that burrito, what a good day it was so far. Let me tell you.
I've had 2 cups of black coffee, and that is it. So I'm excited to eat whatever is going to come my way here. After this podcast, I'm going to mash down on something.
Nice. But I'm currently sipping pre-workout.
Oh, boy. Maybe that's what I need next. But getting back to this, I wanted to comment on this. I don't see anything wrong with the shotgun approach. It just depends on, I agree, where you're currently at in your business and what outcomes you want to make. And obviously, what do you do? If you can be engaging enough within 5 to 10 minutes and leave an impression, not a lot of people can do that. And if you can do that within 5 to 10 minutes and you're going to get 30 to 40 numbers, you're probably going to get more clients. You're definitely going to get more clients. If you are what Vin is, a therapist and a coach, and you want to learn more about them and, what they do, and you truly honestly care, then you're going to build deeper connections, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. So it's just, I see both aspects of it. Me personally, 30 to 40 is excessive. I could probably do 5 to 6, right? I can't do the 5 to 10 minute combos. If I actually like the person, or I like what they do, or I'm actually intrigued, I'll sit there for however long it takes and to find out, what it is about them. Like, how can we make this work? And that's usually all it is. How can this person benefit me? Either in a friendship or in business, whatever it may be, how can this person benefit me? Because that's how I always think of. And that's how you should think of, especially when you're going to a networking event. But I think that 30 to 40, I'm just not that guy either. I can't do that type of approach. However, as mentioned beforehand, I can tell within the first couple of minutes if this is a person that's going to be beneficial to me or not. So, you'll find that out pretty quick, especially the more that you go to, and it's vice versa. If they tend to steer away from the combo or it starts to get cold, let it get cold. There's nothing wrong with that. right? It's just business. If you can't benefit me and I can't benefit you, let's move on. Let's talk to other people, right? That's what we're there for. It's almost essentially like a speed dating thing. And I imagine the same thing with you, Vin. If you don't think that this person is somebody that you can relate to or connect with, or that you can help them, or vice versa, it's on to the next one.
I don't like wasting time when I'm out. See, and that's the thing too, is I really try to be intentional about where I go, because I feel like everything can be a waste of time if you're not, right. If you don't have an objective. So like for me, whenever I go out, I have the goal of one of three things. I want a new client, I want a high quality friend, or I would like a good, like maybe the term is a business relationship. So if you're not a client and you're not a friend, or maybe you're one or two of those, right? Then the last aspect is, do we have something that's mutually beneficial? You know, for me, one of the things that is great is trying to work my way into people's programs as like a value add or an affiliate partner, right? Something along the lines of like, hey, you have a mastermind. Does your mastermind have the support of a mental performance coach to help your members not only stay in the mastermind, but extract more value, increase your longevity runway, and then I get a portion of revenue, right? So I like to look at it like that: business deals, coaching clients, or high quality friends. And if I can find one of those three, I'm happy to have a conversation. If I don't think you're going to be either, I don't know what the point of talking to you is.
Yep. I absolutely agree with you. And you should. I feel like that's a good point to mention too. You should set goals before you go in there. It's the same. I always am a goal setter, right? If you don't set goals, what are you going to achieve? It's just in your mind. Like I just don't really understand that. And if you are a successful entrepreneur, business owner, and you don't set goals or milestones, please send me a DM. And I'd love to talk. I don't know how you do it, but
actually send me a DM. You need a business coach.
Yeah. Send us both DMs. But yeah. So powers of networking, have goals in mind. If you see the conversation going nowhere, it's totally fine. Go to the next person. There's going to be no harm, no foul, right? And network. Meet these amazing people that are out there and how they can benefit you in your life. I'm telling you, just a few of them can change your world. It really is crazy of how some of these, big people, and I feel the vice versa for the other way, can just change how they are, whether it's business, professionally, or personally, right? But I want to hear the big one too, because I know this is a two-parter here of the powers of speaking, because this is not something that I do very often, because I'm not a great public speaker. I'm better at intimate settings.
And very intimate with his large package. You didn't watch last week's episode or this week's episode, whatever the heck it is. You should go back and watch that. Trust me, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's very interesting, because I think people get lost. Networking is supposed to be intentional. I know somebody who, when they go out, they have zero expectations. Like, I just want to have fun. And I'm like, no, can't you have fun being intentional? Can't you have fun having a reason to be there? Can't you have fun, like, getting excited about the fact that you might meet a high quality friend, or you could potentially get a client, which would be great, or maybe you could build a good business connection? Like, why can't those things be fun? Why is it that if you have a set goal to go out, it's no longer fun? And I think that that's something that's interesting, is some people cannot separate, some people have to separate the two. They can't make it the same thing. I think it's fun to have the prospect to know that I'm going to go out with the intention to turn my brain on to look for a high quality friend, a new business relationship, or a potential client. I think that's great. Some people are just like, nah, I don't want to do that, and blah, blah. And listen, again, this goes back to whatever you choose to do is fine. Just make sure you're doing it intentionally. And so that's what I have to say about networking. I think networking's great. Networking's how I built my business over the course of 5+ years, meeting amazing people. I mean, there's nothing better. It's also the best way to get clients, and the best way to grow, and the best way to learn. So go out there, be willing to network, and do what feels right to you. I had somebody tell me, like, hey, you're not meeting enough people, and you need to go out a lot more, and you need to meet a lot more people. And at the same token, that's not necessarily who I am. I don't like doing that stuff. I hate going out all the time and meeting tons of people all the time. I'm a very introverted person. I'd rather be home. I'd rather be home with my kid, not hanging out with whoever you are. And not because I don't like you, but because I really enjoy my time. And so it takes a lot for me to go out and be extroverted, which I did all freaking weekend. So much so that like I don't want to see anybody I didn't want to see anybody for like an entire week, because it's just like I just want to be alone now. So with that, I suppose we could talk about what I was doing all weekend that caused me to be massively extroverted every day from 9 a.m. till 12 a.m. And I was at a conference. I was speaking there, and I was hanging out, and I was doing an educational session in addition to my speech. And I had a booth that I had to present, which whoever is listening that has ever presented an exhibit booth at a conference, I had no idea how much freaking work that was, and I still didn't do it the right way. Like I could have done it 10 trillion times better. So
this case, right?
It's crazy, man. Holy crap. There's so much I could have done. And so where should we start with this stuff, Shane? What do you think about the speaking realm? As somebody who's not really in the speaking realm, I guess for you, what would be a curiosity that you have? Like, let's do this from maybe the viewpoint of perhaps one of our listeners who may not be super into the speaking realm.
So I am contemplating on speaking, right? You get to a point in your business where...
Ooh, hold on.
No,
how are you going to drop that?
It's not anytime soon. It's just, it's a contemplation. I'm contemplating into getting to that realm because I feel like I have a lot of, positive things to say and share the successes that I've had to, help get people where they want to be. I have my feelings of why I don't want to be a coach, and we'll just keep it at that and we'll leave it there for another day. Why I don't want to be a coach.
Because you want to pass all of the qualified clients to me.
But I feel like speaking is a little bit different, right? Speaking is more educational. It's more about me and my successes and what I can teach you, which I like that aspect of it. Comparatively to coaching, it's pretty much brand new and you have to, figure out where they're at, where they want to be, what goals do they have in place, So me personally, I think my question would be my first question is, how do you get over the fear of public speaking? I think that's a very popular question. So let's start with that one.
Okay, there's a few ways. One is you get super used to it. So here's an interesting thing, is that for me, over the weekend, I spoke in front of an audience of 500 people. I have never spoken live in front of such a big audience, like where everybody is literally staring at me and I'm just looking out at you and I'm like, yes, you're all there. Hello. I see each and every one of you all like this at me. And so it was interesting because I thought I'd be nervous. See, the last crowd I spoke in front of was about 20 people, 10 of which were actually just passing by at random moments because I was in an open space giving a speech. The other 10 that were sitting in the seats were all people I knew.
So you were more nervous then?
I was actually a little, you know what, funny enough, I wasn't super nervous at that time. I was a little bit right before I got there because that was my first in-person, like, actual speech at a conference.
Right.
But it was like an open floor plan and I was speaking and my speech wasn't like the headline. So people weren't lining up to see me, but it was listed on some TVs like Vin will be speaking at this time. But, let's be real. Nobody really knew who I was. So I was speaking, but 10 people that came to sit were all people I know. There were like two to three people I didn't know that were getting into it. And the rest of the people were walking by and they're like, oh, what's this guy talking about? And they stand there for a minute and then they probably walk away. So we'd have about 20 people at any given time, let's just say. And as I was up there, I was a bit nervous before I started because I was like, oh man, I'm really about to do this. Okay. So I go and I do it. And now I'm like, that wasn't so bad. Maybe if I have a bigger audience, I'm going to be nervous as hell. So I was actually, to some degree, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I could do it. Like, can I actually speak in front of a big audience one day? And then I find out I'm going to be speaking in front of this audience of like 500 people. I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of people. how's that one going to feel? So I'm waiting. I'm standing on the side because there's the big stage, and then the side is like the bullpen, right? There's all of us other speakers, and there was performers there and stuff too. And I'm watching all these other people speak, and I'm watching the MC go, and then comes down, and then the next person, and so on and so forth. Now, mind you, I was number 3, so I wasn't the first to go, but I was really like, I was 3 out of 9 people to go in that day. So I was like one of the, in the front. And then when it was my turn, I was just excited. I was just like, wow, this is so cool. I felt like a boss, man. I had that headphone, the headset that goes around the ear and comes out like to the mic, like no lavalier, no hold hand, like the real legit, like stuck on the side of my head microphone. And I felt cool. And so it was very interesting to realize I'm actually not nervous to do this. However, and this is kind of the preface of it all, or why I went through the whole thing, is I've also been speaking since 2021. I have been doing it for 3 years. Now, most of it's been virtual. I've been on well over 100 podcasts. I've spoken on virtual summits. I've spoken at virtual events. I have done so much speaking, and funny enough, my first ever speaking engagement was hosted through Les Brown on his virtual summit, and I was sitting in my chair shaking with a fake background because I didn't have a good one. And I was sitting there like shaking before I spoke to the webcam. And so it's so funny to think that I was more nervous to speak on a webcam than I was to speak in front of 500 people. But I truly believe it's because now I am about 4 years into it. I've spoken so much that I have the confidence that what I'm saying matters. And also, there's another piece of it too, is like, it's just the repetition of it. I've already been doing it for so long. And so you start to desensitize. Now, there's another part in there too, is I think what actually could help a lot of people is creating a bit of a ritual, getting into a state. You've even heard this from some famous performers, like I think, what's her name? Who's married to Jay-Z? Beyonce has a different version of herself. Like, she's not Beyonce on stage. You could go look this up. She talks about it, how she has a different identity. But in that different identity is a different state. It's a different feeling. It's a different way you show up. It's a different physiology. You actually shift a part of yourself to get into your performance mode. And so I believe that what we could also do is we can create that separation if we want. If you're somebody who identifies as introvert, like me, I'm introverted. I would really prefer to be left alone sitting in the back of a room at any event. If you ever see me at an event and I'm talking to people, just know it's most likely not me. It's my ego, or it's my alter ego, I should say. And it's the person that I need to be in those rooms. Or maybe not even need. I want to be. That's why I've created that person, because I want the capabilities to do those things. So you have those two options. You create massive exposure through repetition and you start getting used to it, or you create this other persona and you operate within that system. Or third option, you do both. You get super used to it. You create your persona, you mesh the two together, you become an amazing performer. Those are my takes on it.
Well, as somebody who has not done either of those and is not desensitized and who cannot, at this point in time, become a performer, it's just not something that I personally focused on. But I do see that being true, right? It's just like actors being who they need to be to get the job done, right? Beyonce, you, like, that makes good sense. I think that's, it's pretty valid advice. Yeah.
And you could, and anyone could do it, really. Like for me, I started getting on there. There was one website I'm still on today, and I still do bookings through it. It's called Podmatch. You go on there. If anyone needs, I have an affiliate link. Please DM me. But you go on there and you can just practice. Like, and I think that's one of the best ways to do it, because if we're being honest, I like Podmatch. I think it's been a great platform. But they're not like super famous podcasts. You're not going to be on Impact Theory. You're not going to be on the Ed Milet Show. You're not going to be on ridiculously ginormous big podcasts. You're going to be on podcasts with people who have maybe a few hundred or even 1,000 or so people. You're not getting ginormous audiences. So let's be real. If you suck on there, it's not going to matter much. And honestly, it will live on the internet, and that scares some people. But here's the cooler part. You can actually see your progression grow, and people will actually admire that, because one day when you do become a big speaker, if you ever do, people will look back and be like, oh man, Vin was on this podcast called The 1% and he bombed it. Dude, he was terrible. But that was like 5 years ago. And now he's like one of the world renowned speakers. And it's so crazy to see how he started and where he's been. And then it also enhances your credibility if you ever want to help other people with speaking. So they can be like, well, what do you know, bro? And it's like, well, here's my first podcast. It was awful. Here I am now speaking on a stage in front of 20,000 people. And so anything you could do right now, you could practice, you could desensitize yourself, you could build your story. Part of speaking is understanding how you want to show up. Now, Shane said something before that I have to correct him. I have to, out of the love for speaking, not even out of love for our friendship, out of love for speakers. Shane said, get up on the stage and just share information with people, share information that he has to people to help them. And he's not incorrect about that. But that is actually a massively small fraction of what you do as a speaker. The biggest thing that makes somebody a good speaker is not sharing what you know, but creating an experience for the people in the audience. If you can create an experience that conveys your point and creates an emotion within the people you're speaking to, without you having to even convey the freaking point logically to them, you are going to crush it as a speaker. Because nobody wants to get a speaker that is just going to get up on stage and talk at them for an hour, because that's boring. It's not memorable, and you're going to forget all the damn information. What made my speech really great, and I actually, Shane, I didn't get to tell you, I landed some paid speaking gigs from the event. I'll tell you about it later off the stream. None of you can know about it, but
secret telling.
It's the secret sauce, and if you want to know, you have to pay me. No, so I mean, yes, but also no. But the thing that I did was I got up there and I actually created an experience. They were like, hey, you could do a slideshow. One person had a slideshow, and they had a bunch of freaking questions on it, tons of writing. Every slide was a piece of freaking writing. My slides were just photos. And they were only photos because I wasn't going to read crap off of the slide. I was going to give you an experience, and I wanted you to focus on me, not reading the slides. The second thing I did was I format my story. Every good speaker has a format. It follows STT, Story, Teach, Tool. You need to tell a story. It builds your credibility. It creates like, know, and trust factor. From that moment, people will determine if they want to invest in listening to you because they feel a connection. Because connection creates openness. When somebody's open, they're now willing to be taught. They're willing to gain a piece of information. But you can't stop there either. Once you give them the piece of information, you have to give them something to do with it so they could get a new result in their life. Now, this is where I believe people fall short, because they do just that. They'll be like, here's how you could apply it. So if you go out into the real world and you do X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 congratulations. You've given them knowledge and they're going to forget it by the end of the speech, because especially if it's a big event, like I was at a 3-day event. People remembered my speech the entire 3 days because I made it memorable. And when I did the tool part, it was actually experiential as opposed to, hey, go do this. I was like, if you'll all join me, we're going to do this right now. I'm going to create an experience for you right here, right now. Everybody stand up. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, because the point that I'm conveying, I want you to get it like this. I want you to leave here today knowing you actually learned something. And then because you felt it and experienced it, we have now tapped into the law of exposure. And the law of exposure is once you're exposed to information, you can never be unexposed to it. So now when life starts happening, you're either going to take the information and utilize it, or you're going to choose to ignore it, but you will never forget it. So I exposed people to something. And now they actually had an experience that will last. So when I saw people throughout the rest of the event, and they were like, oh, hey, and I was like, oh, did you see my showcase? And they were like, yes, I loved it. My showcase was my speech, right? And they were like, yeah, I loved it, etc. I was able to get that response because of the fact that I created an experience for them. And so that's actually one of the deeper nuances of speaking that will make you like a presenter or a speaker. Because a lot of people could present. Everybody could present. There's not one person that can't get up and just information. But it truly takes a speaker to get up and create an experience. That's, if you want to speak, That's what you need to learn how to do.
I mean, I'm hiring you when, if and when, we'll just say when I go down that path, because I didn't know any of that. And you're absolutely right, and we're doing the Small Business Expo, and it's probably one of the biggest expos in the nation. They do them all over the place. I think there's like 40 of them this year.
Mm-hmm.
My team is actually doing that, and we paid for webinars. So I'm hiring you right now on the spot during a podcast because my sales director will be doing the whole approach. So you're going to need to be coaching and training him on what exactly you just said, because I think that he's doing it in front of like 120 people. So boom, he already got a new client. Surprise. Although I've already been a client.
Perfect.
So
that'll be my first testimonial for my new speaker program that I've been building out.
So yeah, I mean that's all great stuff especially for somebody who doesn't know and has been curious about going into speaking. I think that's all great advice.
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to think that same way. Like and here's the kicker. Because I've been speaking for so long, and I think this is part of my desensitization, I've already gotten so much feedback about the fact that I give people information overload and that my webinars are not good and that my workshop was not good and that my speech could have been stronger because I've already failed so freaking much because I just sit there and talk that I had to learn how to sit there and create. And so I've been through that so much so that when I knew I was going to get on that stage, I was excited because for the first time, I was finally like, yes, I'm going to get up on a big stage. I'm going to show people that I know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm going to create an experience for them. And this is exciting to me because this is what I've been working so hard to do, is to set myself aside as opposed to the one person that's going to get up there and just drone at you and read off their slides with 10 million words.
Right.
Like, you want to talk about how you can enhance what the webinar you're going to do? If you have 10 slides, or 8 of them should be photos. 9 of them should be photos. And you should just have it completely focused on the guy that's going to be speaking. And then there should be so much participation. Like, for instance, here's another few things. So I'll drop a few more pieces of info because I think this is really helpful for anyone who wants to be a speaker. When you get up on stage, you could do a few things. Is one, you could pre-frame. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you today. We're going to go over life can seemingly be out of control. How many of you would agree with that? Now, see, what I'm doing is I'm gathering engagement. I'm getting people invested, right? How many of you can agree with that? Put your hands up, give me a that's me. Or if you're doing something virtual, you tell people, hey, if you agree with that, drop a yes in the chat, drop an emoji, let me know you're here, whatever. Then you ask another question, or you go into what you're trying to pre-frame them for. And you could say, if you've ever felt like life is going to be seemingly out of your control, or you've ever felt helpless or lived in victimhood, what if I told you I could teach you 5 things that if you could master, life could never be out of control for you again? How many of you would like that? How many of you would love the possibility to determine the trajectory of your life and make every outcome something that's favorable to you? Would you be interested in that? If that interests you, raise your hand, give me a yes. So you're getting people to know what they're supposed to pay attention to because you're pre-framing the whole speech. There's 5 things I'm going to teach you. So now their brain is actually going to be more tuned in because you've created curiosity. There's a psychological component to that. Well, when you create curiosity, but you point out what they're supposed to look for, they're actually more likely to be invested in the convo because you've already told them what you're going to say, instead of just being like, all right, guys, today we got to talk. Life could be out of control, but I'm going to help you. I don't know what I'm supposed to look for. You didn't give me any components. You didn't give me any clarity of how you're going to help me, what you're going to help me with, etc. Also, you want to consistently do forms of engagement, like where you say, hey, everyone. Now, for instance, this is how I started my speech. I said, hello, everybody. Welcome to the conference. Super excited to be here today. Before I start, I would love to see how many of you are here because you want to learn a piece of information that could change the trajectory of your life. If that's you, raise your hand. Give me a yes. Like, everybody raise their hand. Number 2. Then I go, awesome. How many of you are here because of the fact that you are looking to have an experience you'll never forget? If that's you, raise your hand. Give me a yes. That's number 2. So as you can see, I'm consistently getting people to buy in because I'm getting them to interact with me. And then you could do a little icebreaker and you can make a joke. And I said, great. So now that we got that settled, how many of you are number 3 here? Well, let's be honest. You have no idea why you're here. If that's you, raise your hand. A bunch of people raised their hand. They all laughed. And so we got people engaging. Then you have this topic. There's this conversational piece of I versus you or you versus I. And speakers will get up there and they'll just talk about themselves. And they'll just talk about their experiences or they'll just talk about the information or whatever, but they never relate it back. So some of you listeners might even hear me do it in our podcast pretty regularly, where I say, how many of you out there are thinking about this? Or how many of you out there relate to this? Or how many of you out there have ever experienced this? So in my speech, I'll say, well, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. They made me feel as though I was living in a state of victimhood. How many of you can relate to that? Have you ever felt like life was out of control? Have you ever experienced anxiety to a level where your chest physically hurt? If you could remember what that feels like, you might know that that is one of the hardest things you could ever experience. It didn't go well for me. So you see, I talked about me. I brought it to you. So I connected. And again, I called your attention. And then I brought it back to me so that I could continue with my speech. So it's the I to you, back to me is one of the biggest ways to continue building and creating engagement throughout your speech, because people will just talk. And then at the end, they'll be like, who has questions? They've been disengaged for the entire damn speech, man. They have no questions. They don't even know what you said. So yeah, guys, there is so much. I feel like I'm just going to talk and I feel bad. Shane's just sitting there, but I love speaking. I love the nuances of it. There's so much to learn. There's speaking communities. There's speaking websites. There's speaking classes. There's speaking coaches. There's speaking organizations. There's so much that goes into being a great speaker. And it's truly an art that you can master. And so I encourage anyone who's curious, first up, DM me if you're curious, and start looking at these different resources. But I don't want to take up the entirety of the podcast because I feel like this is a monologue. So my man Shane over there looking handsome in his baby blue with his girl dad mug. What do you got going on?
I mean, I enjoy just, listening and absorbing, because I think that's really what it was, right? Is gathering your tidbits and engaging the audience and bringing it back to them and back to you. Like, this is stuff that I personally don't know. And I'm assuming our viewers don't know. And if they have any interest in becoming speaking, it's asking for help, right? Do you want to actually get customers from this or be a better speaker? Then do it the right way. It's just like, why get a business coach in the first place, or why model, somebody who is already successful? It's because you want to get there faster. You want to do things fast. You want to do things the right way. So instead of wasting time and doing all the failures that Vin's been doing for, 2-3 years, right? Yeah. Which now he's learned from those, you learn from somebody who's already done it. And that's what this is for. So yes. I've personally loved it. I mean, I already hired him, I get definitely the friend discount here, but I think that's what it's all about is kind of getting those tidbits of information in a better way of putting it than I would. And I'm sure you guys are going to slide into his DMs after this.
Slide on in, baby. Well, you know what? And let me throw out one more thing there too. I think to Shane's point, mentors are so important. I started out speaking by going, and my first ever brush with speaking was learning under Les Brown. I took Les Brown's speaking course. I got a certification and I spoke on a summit. I was one of 20 people selected out of a class of 600 people to speak on Les Brown's virtual summit. And then from there, I joined groups like Toastmasters. I continuously practiced my speaking. I volunteered. I spoke for free for so long. And I've continued to speak free even to this day, because I'll take any speaking opportunity because I just want to learn. And then more recently, a couple months back, I wound up becoming friends with Nick Santanastasso. And I hired him to also become my speaking coach. For those of you that don't know who he is, he's a celebrity speaker. He's a phenomenal speaker. He tours with Tony Robbins. He's one of the best current speakers on this planet. He's going to keep accelerating. I mean, the man is phenomenal. He's truly one of the world's best speakers at this day and age. And I've been learning from him too. And so even if you can't start with world-class speakers, know that you can get there later. But just as always, as we always put in here and we talk about, and the whole freaking name of the podcast, guys, the 1% podcast, just strive to become 1% better. You don't have to go learn from Nick Santanastasso or from Les Brown or from me or from these other organizations. Go get books, go practice, go sit in the mirror. I used to do challenges where I would tell entire speeches in 1 to 3 minutes. And then I would do a challenge where I would tell a speech in 10 minutes. Then I did a challenge where I told a speech in what was it, 5 minutes. And there's so many different ways, because a lot of the times what happens during speaking that makes people not be good speakers is not only not having good engagement, but they don't know how to condense information. So when I had to do that challenge, because I was still working with Les Brown's team, I remember I had to submit a 3-minute speech. A 3-minute speech. I had to tell my story. I had to give the teaching, and I had to provide the tool in 3 minutes. I had about a minute for each part of that. And I did it. Don't get me wrong. It took me like 20 tries. I had my girl help me. She was recording me, and I'd be in the middle of speaking. She'd be like, time. And I'd be like, damn it. Let's go again. And we just keep going and going and going and going. And that's just what it takes. You don't have to be world class yet. You don't have to hire world class yet. You just have to strive to be 1% better every day. Try shit, keep going, give it your all. You can do anything. And this episode is focused on how you could do anything in speaking, communications, and network.
I believe you can do both, right? I love the 1% mentality, but I also believe that if you do have the finances available, hire that person.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's a good mentality to have in general. But if you are, like, for instance, successful and you want to go to the next thing, like, I'm going to hire that person. Absolutely. Because I want to save a year off of my time and learning from all of that. It's a great skill set to have, but that's why I'd rather hire the best personally and be like, teach me the best shit right now.
Listen, and don't get me wrong, Shane, you're 100% right. I was talking more for the people that would get discouraged because they can't right off the bat spend thousands to work with Nick Santanastasso like I did. Or they can't spend thousands to get around Les Brown like I did. And that's what I'm saying. But you're right. Listen, if you have the income and you have the desire, go full force, because the whole point, and this is what I preach as a coach, the whole reason you would hire me, for instance, if you were to hire me as a coach, right, is because of the fact that you will look at what I have in my background. I have 14 years of experience in mental health and personal development. I have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree. I have honors. I've taken other courses. I've taken seminars. I've taken certifications. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in my own investment, self-education, personal development, my field, my study. If you hire me, you get to collapse all of my knowledge into a small fraction of what it takes that I could teach you in a few months that took me 14 years to acquire.
Right.
And so to Shane's point, yes, if you have the income, hire, and look at it from that perspective. Like, you're going to hire Nick Santanastasso, cool. You're going to be hiring the man who's literally recognized right now as an international world-class celebrity speaker, and he's going to charge you a good fee, but you're paying for the fact that this man is getting paid one of the highest paid speakers in the world right now, that he is touring the world, that he is world renowned. That's actually what you're paying for. You're paying for the fact that he has that experience and he could share that with you. So the power of investing in a good coach, a good mentor, a good therapist, it speaks so high of itself. And that's why when people tell me things like, yeah, coaching is a luxury, it's like, you only think that way because you don't understand the power of investing in yourself, because you're probably a do-it-yourselfer. And you're going to spend 10 years where the person who would go to the best and invest in them will spend 1 year and be 20 times further than you'll ever get in 10 years because you're trying to figure it out yourself, instead of looking at how can I collapse that gateway. And as I do, it increases my life, it increases my energy, it increases my time, my income, all these things that you're not willing to look at because you don't want to spend a few dollars up front, and you're missing so much on the back end. So 100% to Shane's point. I just had to point that out. Also, this pre-workout has me going, guys. Yeah, not sponsored by, but hopefully one day for Total War.
Yes. I mean, there's not much more to say beyond both points. Thank you, Vin, for elaborating on both of those. They were very well said, like always.
Yes, sir.
But we're going to have to end this. Thank you so much, Vin, for speaking. Like I said, right after this, we're going to get together and you're going to work with my sales director, Kyle, because he needs help. And our presentation is just that. So, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm already looking forward to next week's episode. We got some good stuff for you. For once, I'm closing it out. I'm Shane.
And I'm Finn, and I'm surprised.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. See ya.
See ya.